And thank you for watching. I'm Giovanni Haqani. Wanted to discuss the Biden unveiling of his infrastructure, the $2 trillion infrastructure bill plan he just proposed. When you look at it on face value, it's great. It's going to be a plus for the economy, no doubt. I'll never knock anything that looks good as far as even if it's on paper and there's a lot of issues with it, that are, typically you get bills that have a lot of pork in it. But just by looking at what he proposed there, naturally it's going to create a lot of jobs. So if you're in a union, good news, great news. It's going to create a lot of union jobs, and it's a $2 trillion proposal that's going to be paid over the next 8 years. At least that's what the plan states, for to pay for, by raising taxes from 21% to about 28%. Because remember, when Trump came in, he rolled back some of those taxes from 35 to 21%. So Biden is proposing that it's going to raise it to about 28%, which is, what we need to do at this point, because the economy is going to, go spiraling down if we didn't do something to revive the economy. And typically, infrastructure bills, historically, when you look at what FDR did, after the Great Depression, the only way to pull the nation out of that slump was to create a whole lot of jobs, and he did. He created a lot of projects, the Public Works program and all that. Remember the Hoover Dam was built during that time. So infrastructure bills are typically created or proposed right after a kind of a downtrend or a slump to revive the economy, because it creates a lot of jobs. Makes sense, right? Which is not something very difficult to understand when it's explained properly. And why is it that he's proposing after this, stimulus bill, he's proposing a $2 trillion infrastructure bill. So when you look at the infrastructure bill, it got $400 billion for, number one, he's going to pay for it through raising taxes, which is fine. Which is what we typically do anyhow. We either have to raise taxes or borrow it from someone else. And in this case, we're not going to go and borrow money from someone else. We'd rather, it makes more logical sense to raise taxes for the next 8 to 10 years and raise revenue that way. Approximately $621 billion for roads, bridges, infrastructure. When you're talking about infrastructure, you're mainly looking at things like the airports and ports, highways, bridges, that kind of thing, which is great because it creates a tremendous amount of jobs, especially union jobs. So if you're in union, that is an absolutely great thing, great news for you, because you would be working, for the next few years. That's a guarantee. So that is great news for that. And then, so $621 billion for bridges, roads, and public works, transit, things like that. And then the next one down, when I was going through it, the $400 billion for the elderly and disabled Americans. I'm not quite clear on the disabled and the elderly. I know there's some talks there as far as how to distribute those funds. When you're talking about elderly, it's kind of vague. The language is kind of vague there at this point. I am going to look more into it, try to clarify it for the viewer to see what it is exactly that it entails. So, which is still good. We need the money for, for the elderly. It's a must, and then disabled Americans, of course, that is also necessary. And then $300 billion for to improve drinking water. So a lot of, and what that means is simply all the pipelines that are, the pipe fixtures that are getting old and dated, a lot of them are basically hazardous at this point, because you're looking at you know, these old pipes that were put in there in the 40s and 50s, and I think they're way overdue in repairs and stuff. So and then it's a lot healthier for us, because a lot of them probably have issues as far as lead, you know, in the water supply and things like that, which is, you know, something that many cities are dealing with. So this is overall, when you look at this proposal, it's a pretty decent proposal. However, in the end, I'm going to give you something, a point that I was disappointed with, and I'll get to that in the end of it. But overall, so $300 billion in drinking water, another $300 billion in affordable housing upgrades, and also that includes school. Affordable housing, I think it has a lot to do with you know, the distribution of the money going towards social programs and things of that sort. That's basically how I would categorize it. Because when you say affordable housing, well, what does that mean? So more or less, you know, the safety, you know, you're looking at social programs, and you just kind of, you know, designated affordable housing. 580 billion for, these are all billions, by the way, 580 billion for manufacturing and research and development, R&D, which is a great thing, once again. No doubt about it. Typically, when we go through you know, a deep recession like we have because of the pandemic, you know, most economists were predicting a Great Depression-like situation, because we have never faced anything like the pandemic, at least with, well, the 1918 pandemic was a lot different because the population wasn't as big as it is right now. So we're looking at way less than half of the population during the 1918 pandemic, the Spanish flu. So right now, what I would say is, by looking at the overall plan, it looks very good. Everything looks great. There is one thing, however, that's disappointing to me, and I usually, you know, try to state that right at the beginning, but I kind of left it because this is a good plan, and it covers pretty much everything there, and then outlines more or less how they're going to pay for it over the next 8 to 10 years. Well, the plan is 8 years. So by raising the taxes from 21% to 28%, it's still below the 35 that the previous administration lowered it from. So, and they brought it all the way down to 21%. Judging from the outlook, it looks great. Everything looks great, but there is one thing missing in there, which was the healthcare mandate. There's nothing in there for expansion of any sort of Medicare for all or anything like that, which is a disappointment to me, because when you look at, if you watch my previous videos, I mentioned I was going to bring up the national healthcare quite a bit in my future episodes, and here I am talking about it during this infrastructure proposal by the Biden administration. I would have really liked for them to have included something in there for healthcare and the healthcare provisions as far as expanding Medicare or something, even if it was expanding it from 55 down to 50. That would have meant that, okay, that's a serious bill. And I know the title is infrastructure, so how do you include healthcare in there? When you look at it, he is including. It's just titled that way, more or less, to kind of give the general idea and more what the money is going to be spent for. But when you look at it, there's money in there for manufacturing, for research and development, for the elderly, for disabled Americans. So when you completely ignored what happened during the pandemic, and majority of the people that died, the 550,000 and counting that have passed away from the coronavirus were basically affected by the pre-existing conditions they had. So, and that was due to the lack of health care, because we are a sick care system, not a healthcare system. People get sick and they go to the emergency, or they completely avoid it and they have a pre-existing condition that progresses and causes all sorts of problems down the road. So majority of the public that was affected, that is affected, and have many of them that have died due to their pre-existing conditions. And I'm very disappointed that Biden administration didn't bring up anything as far as expanding Medicare, or even a precursor to a nationalized healthcare system. Because another pandemic, or even if you look at this one is not over yet. And they're talking about variants. They're talking about all sorts of issues that are arising from just this dangerous virus still floating through our midst. So I'm very disappointed, to say the least. And personally, I would like the Biden administration to address, at the very least, address the national healthcare crisis. I know it was him that shot down, the single-payer system when Obama was trying to bring, the National Obamacare or Affordable Care Act. It was him, and you can tell pretty much right now when he's basically the man that's in charge of it, and he's the president. He hasn't said one word about anything to do with Medicare for all, or something that that would expand the healthcare to meet more individuals. Very disappointing, extremely disappointed. I tend to be a little bit more progressive on it, and I understand the Biden administration is not. But I am surprised that Bernie Sanders has been very quiet. The AOCs have been very quiet. I'm not sure why they're so quiet. But I'm going to state what I feel like I need to state at this point, and say, okay, it's a great bill, it's a great proposal, takes care of a lot of jobs and revives our economy, which is a great thing. However, they needed to address the main situation of those 550,000 individuals dying from pre-existing conditions primarily. And I'm very disappointed with that. So anyways, I'll leave it at that, and I'll try to cover some more, in the future videos, try to cover a little bit more about the healthcare and the more statistics and things like that. But that's always a disappointment to me. I'm always upset and disappointed. There's so many millions of Americans who do not have healthcare coverage. And look, we went through a pandemic. No one is talking about it on the national media. No one is saying anything. Of course, they've been told, they've been muzzled by the corporate, all the corporate sponsors. I'm not muzzled. I'm an independent, and I can go out there and state, the things that I need to state. So, thank you for watching. Click the like button, subscribe, and thank you for watching.